Hi, I'm Daniel, and I've always believed in ordinary love. Not the kind you see in movies or read about in novels, but the quiet, comfortable kind that fills a life with small, almost invisible moments of happiness. I met Brooke Miller 3 years ago in Charlotte, North Carolina, at a little bookstore tucked away in a side street near my apartment. She was wearing a green scarf, laughing at a joke the cashier had made, and I remember thinking how that laugh, light, airy, almost musical, could make a gray day feel sunny. I still remember it. At first, it was the little things that drew me to her, the way she could remember the names of every barista in the city, how she insisted on making her coffee exactly 3.5 minutes steeped. And how she'd leave post-it notes on my fridge just to say, "Don't forget to smile today." I fell hard, probably faster than anyone should, but it never mattered. I loved the way she made ordinary moments feel extraordinary, but over time, I began noticing small cracks. Nothing obvious, nothing that screamed betrayal or deceit, just subtle shifts. She would glance at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. Sometimes she seemed distant, like her mind was elsewhere, lost in thoughts she never shared. At first, I dismissed it as stress. She worked at a marketing firm downtown, always pushing herself to the edge. And I, busy with my own job in real estate, told myself that maybe I was too consumed by my own routine to notice. Even so, there were nights when I would lie awake in bed, watching her sleep and wondering if she was truly here with me. There was a softness in her face, but a shadow in her eyes that I couldn't place. I convinced myself it was nothing, that love requires trust and patience, and I tried to focus on the comfort we shared. Dinner dates at the Liberty Warehouse, walks through Romari Bearden Park, Saturday morning coffees at the Charlotte Farmers Market. All these small routines gave me the illusion that everything was fine, yet, the uneasy feeling lingered, like a quiet whisper at the back of my mind, telling me something was coming, something I wasn't ready for. And the truth is, I wasn't. At that time, I couldn't have imagined that one phone call, one unexpected cancellation, would change everything I believed about love, trust, and Brooke. I didn't know it yet, but the cracks were about to widen, and the world I thought I knew, the world where Brooke and I existed peacefully, was about to shatter. The next week started like any other, but there was an unease in the air I couldn't shake. Brooke was still the same woman I loved, her laugh, her warmth, her quirks, yet there was something different. A subtle tension in the way she moved around our apartment, the way her fingers lingered on her phone longer than usual. She would respond to my texts almost mechanically, her smile forced when I tried to joke. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe stress from work or something personal was weighing on her. But the nagging feeling in my chest told me otherwise. It wasn't just her behavior, it was the little things that began stacking up, each one insignificant on its own, but together forming a pattern I couldn't ignore. One evening, I came home early from work, thinking I'd surprise her with her favorite Thai takeout. I unlocked the door and heard quiet whispers from the living room. I paused, thinking maybe it was just a TV program she had on. But the voices didn't match the dialogue from the show. They were too hushed, too deliberate. My heart thumped in my chest, but I told myself it was nothing, paranoia, maybe, the product of a mind that overanalyzes. Later that night, as we sat on the couch, I tried to bring up something trivial, something to reconnect. "Brooke, you seem distracted today, everything okay at work?" Her eyes flickered, hesitation dancing across her features. Yeah, it's fine," she said quickly, avoiding my gaze. That pause, the way she almost didn't want to answer, left me unsettled. I wanted to push further, but I didn't. I didn't know what I would have done if she'd told me the truth. Even more unsettling was the way she laughed a little too loudly when I joked, as if trying to convince herself the moment was normal. I remembered how we used to sit for hours on end, talking about everything and nothing. That connection was slipping, slowly and silently, and I felt powerless to stop it. That week ended with a quiet storm brewing in my chest. Something was off. I could sense it, though I didn't have proof, and every instinct in me screamed that a change was coming, a moment that would upend everything I thought I knew about Brooke. About us, and then came the call, Ryan's voice, tense, almost breaking through the phone line, said just 3 words, Brooke. Lakeview Inn. Time froze. My heart stopped, but my mind didn't. I couldn't breathe. The words Ryan had just said echoed in my mind like a distorted alarm, Brooke. Lakeview Inn. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, my knuckles pounding in rhythm with the anxious thump of my heart. Every rational part of me screamed to stop, to think, to wait, but another part, a deeper, darker part, demanded I see it for myself. I had to know. I had to see her. The city lights of Charlotte blurred as I drove faster than I should have, weaving through familiar streets that suddenly felt alien. Every honk, every flash of headlights, made me flinch. I replayed every interaction from the past week in my mind. Every delayed text, every distant glance, every forced laugh. None of it had prepared me for this moment. I thought about calling Brooke, but what would I say? I know where you are, and I'm coming to see who you're with. No. That would only make things worse. And besides, I had to see it with my own eyes. I had to know the truth. The highway stretched ahead like a tunnel into uncertainty. I could feel the tension in my chest tightening with every mile. My thoughts were a storm, colliding with themselves. What if Ryan was wrong? What if it's a misunderstanding? What if? But deep down, I knew the truth was never that simple. The closer I got to the Lakeview Inn, the more my stomach churned. I'd driven past it countless times before, a nondescript motel tucked on the edge of town, nothing glamorous or inviting. Yet tonight, it loomed like a sentinel of judgment, holding secrets behind its faded walls. I parked a few blocks away, letting the engine idle, staring at the flickering neon sign as if it might offer me some clue. Some warning. I stepped out of the car, the night air thick with tension and the faint smell of gasoline and asphalt. Each step toward the motel felt heavier than the last, every footfall echoing in the quiet streets. My mind raced with 1,000 possibilities, none comforting. I told myself it might be a mistake, she could be there for work, or visiting a friend. But even as I whispered those words to calm myself, my gut refused to believe them. I finally reached the entrance. The front door swung slightly with the breeze, a dim light glowing from the lobby. I took a deep breath and told myself, this is it. Whatever happens, I'll face it. My heart was pounding, my mind screaming warnings I refused to heed. And then, the receptionist spoke, her voice casual, almost indifferent, room 214, right? It was then that I realized, she wasn't just here. She had checked in. And now, I was about to see the truth with my own eyes. The lobby of the Lakeview Inn smelled faintly of stale coffee and cleaning spray, a scent that usually would have been forgettable, but tonight it felt suffocating. I forced my legs to move, each step toward the elevator heavier than the last. My chest tightened, and my pulse raced so loudly I was sure Brooke could hear it from the room, though I didn't know yet if she was truly inside. The elevator ride was agonizingly slow, each ding of the floors passing by like a countdown to my worst fear. I kept imagining what I might find behind that door, Brooke smiling, apologizing, innocent. Or something far worse. The thought of betrayal burned in my chest, a fire that refused to be quenched. I reached the second floor. The hallway was dimly lit, the carpet worn and threadbare under my shoes. And then I saw it, room 214. The door stood closed, ordinary, but for me it had become a threshold into uncertainty and heartbreak. I hesitated for a heartbeat, my hand hovering over the doorknob. My mind screamed at me to leave, to call Ryan back, to avoid this nightmare. But my heart refused to let me walk away. I knocked. One firm, deliberate knock. And then, a laugh. A man's voice, light and casual. Brooke's laugh followed, bright and familiar, yet entirely foreign in context. My stomach lurched. My pulse doubled. I pushed the door open, and froze. Ryan. My best friend since college, standing there half-dressed, his eyes wide with panic. Brooke was beside him, her expression caught between fear and desperation. Daniel. She whispered, her voice trembling, the scene before me was a betrayal I could never have imagined. The laughter, the proximity, the casual familiarity, it was everything I had feared. I wanted to scream, to accuse, to demand answers, but my throat was dry, and my limbs felt leaden. Ryan stammered, "Daniel, I can explain." But the words didn't reach me. I only saw what my heart refused to ignore. The first twist of my life's narrative had landed with the weight of a sledgehammer. My best friend. The woman I loved. Together. I didn't yell. I didn't confront. I simply backed out of the room, shutting the door quietly behind me, leaving them there in their fragile panic. Outside, the hallway was silent except for my ragged breathing. My mind tried to piece together what I had just witnessed. Was it betrayal? A misunderstanding? My heart told me no. My mind refused to process it entirely. Trapped in disbelief, I walked back to the elevator, every step echoing in the empty corridor, and for the first time in years, I questioned everything, the laughter, the smiles, the life I thought I had with Brooke. And as I descended to the lobby, one thought consumed me: I had to know the truth. Whatever it took. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, the engine running but making no sound against the whirlwind in my head. The streetlights outside flickered intermittently, casting long, wavering shadows across the dashboard, as if the universe itself couldn't decide what to reveal next. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. Ryan, my best friend. Brooke, the woman I trusted with my heart. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, sharp and unrelenting. Every instinct told me to call someone, to yell, to confront them, but I didn't. I didn't know what I would even say. Words failed me, and tears pricked the back of my eyes, a mix of heartbreak and disbelief. I wanted to scream, to demand answers. But the silence inside me was louder than anything I could utter. I replayed every memory I had with Brooke, the laughter, the late-night talks, the weekend drives through Charlotte, trying to reconcile the woman I knew with the scene I had just witnessed. Could she really be capable of something like this? Could Ryan, someone I had trusted unconditionally, truly betray me in this way? My mind refused to accept it. Yet the images were etched into my memory, unshakable. After what felt like an eternity, I forced myself out of the car and walked the streets around the motel. My thoughts were a storm, part anger, part fear, part sorrow, but there was one thing I knew: I couldn't ignore this. I had to find the truth, even if it broke me in the process. I returned to the motel lobby, pretending to browse the directory, my heart thumping in my chest with every step. That's when I noticed it, a piece of paper tucked under the lobby chair. I bent down to pick it up. It wasn't a note addressed to me, but a receipt, a timestamp, and a name I didn't recognize. Something about it made my stomach twist. Whoever had checked into room 214 had left traces. Breadcrumbs for someone who cared enough to notice. I knew then that I couldn't wait for explanations to come to me. I had to dig, to follow every lead, to uncover what really happened. And somewhere deep inside, I sensed that the answer wasn't simple. That what I had seen was only the surface of something far more complicated. I took a deep breath, gripping the paper like a lifeline. The night was silent around me, but inside, my mind was racing. I was about to step into a truth I wasn't prepared for, a truth that might change everything I believed about Brooke, Ryan, and myself, and just as I turned to leave the motel, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. A message. One line. "You're closer than you think. But some doors are better left closed." The message burned in my hand, its words looping in my mind over and over. You're closer than you think. But some doors are better left closed. My chest tightened as I stared at the screen, unsure whether it was a warning or a threat. I didn't know who had sent it, Brooke? Ryan? Or someone else entirely? My instincts screamed that the truth was tangled far deeper than I had imagined. I drove back to the apartment, replaying every interaction with Brooke over the past few weeks. The slight distance in her eyes, the hurried explanations, the nervous glances at her phone, none of it seemed accidental anymore. The more I thought, the more I realized I had ignored the signs, choosing comfort over confrontation. And now, ignoring them was no longer an option. When I got inside, Brooke was waiting. Her expression was unreadable, a mask I had seen 1,000 times, but tonight it seemed thinner, fragile. She looked at me, her lips quivering. "Daniel. I can explain," she said softly. But her voice lacked the conviction it once held. I held up my phone. "Who sent this?" I demanded. "And why did I find you with Ryan at the motel?" My voice wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that made her flinch. Brooke swallowed hard and took a step closer. "Daniel. Please, sit. I want you to hear everything, but I need you to trust me for just a moment." Her hands shook slightly as she reached for mine. I hesitated, my emotions warring, anger, disbelief, fear, and the lingering love I couldn't seem to let go of. She began slowly, cautiously, revealing fragments of her life I had never known. She had a past she hadn't shared with me, something dangerous and complicated. Ryan. He hadn't been her lover. At least, not in the way I feared. He had been involved in something she couldn't explain fully. Something that had forced her into hiding. Her story was fragmented, full of half-truths, yet even in her hesitant words, I sensed urgency and fear. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to hold on to the Brooke I knew. But every word she said created more questions than answers. Why hadn't she told me sooner? Why had Ryan been there, and why did it feel like she was protecting him more than she was protecting me? Before I could ask more, her phone vibrated on the counter. She glanced at it, her eyes widening. I have to take this," she whispered, her voice tense. She stepped out of the room, leaving me with a silence thicker than any I had ever felt. I sat there alone, my mind racing, trying to piece together the fragments she had just given me. Nothing fit perfectly, yet everything hinted at a truth I wasn't ready to face. And as I watched her disappear down the hallway, a cold realization sank in. The real story, the one behind room 214, Ryan, and Brooke's hidden life, had only just begun. I couldn't stay still. Brooke's partial confession had left me more confused than ever, but it also lit a fire I couldn't ignore. If she wasn't lying about everything, then someone was manipulating the situation, someone who wanted me to believe the worst. And I had to know who. I started with small steps, retracing her recent activities in my mind. The little inconsistencies, late nights at work, calls she stepped out to take, unfamiliar names she mentioned casually, all seemed insignificant at the time. Now, they formed a subtle pattern, a trail leading somewhere I wasn't sure I wanted to go. But the need to understand overpowered hesitation. I checked the motel receipt I had found earlier, studying the timestamp and the name listed. It was unfamiliar, but something about the handwriting seemed deliberate. Like it had been meant for someone like me, someone paying attention. I tried to call Ryan, but his phone went straight to voicemail. That alone told me he was hiding something. And Brooke. She hadn't told me everything. I decided to take a drive. The streets of Charlotte at night were quiet, the city lights reflecting off the asphalt like shards of broken glass. I followed the route I imagined Brooke might have taken to reach the motel. Every street corner, every flickering sign, felt charged with possibility, or danger. My pulse was steady but urgent, a mix of fear and determination. Along the way, I noticed a car parked at a distance, engine off, its interior shadowed. At first, I dismissed it as coincidence. But as I continued, the same car seemed to reappear at the next intersection, then again near a gas station. My stomach tightened. Someone was watching. Or maybe I was being paranoid. Either way, I couldn't ignore it. By the time I returned home, my mind was racing. I had started to connect the dots, Ryan's presence at the motel, Brooke's nervous behavior, the cryptic message, the recurring car, and a pattern was emerging. It was as if someone was choreographing events, guiding me toward a truth I wasn't ready to face. When I finally reached my apartment, Brooke was gone. No note. No explanation. Just an emptiness that felt heavier than any confrontation I had ever experienced. On the kitchen counter, a single post-it remained, "Be careful who you trust." The warning was vague but unmistakable. I knew that the next steps I took would be critical. The first betrayal had been painful, but now, the stakes were higher. The shadows I was following weren't just hiding the truth about Brooke, they were hiding the truth about everything I thought I knew, and somewhere in the night, I felt it, the story wasn't over. It had only just begun. The next morning, I woke with a restless heaviness in my chest. The post-it from the night before, "Be careful who you trust," seemed to echo in my mind, louder than any alarm. I knew one thing for certain: I couldn't wait for answers to come to me. I had to go to Ryan directly. If he was involved in whatever Brooke was hiding, he was the first person who might tell me, or mislead me even further. I found him at his apartment, a modest place in a quiet Charlotte neighborhood. I knocked once. Twice. No answer. Finally, I tried the doorknob, unlocked. Inside, the place was empty, save for a laptop on the table and a half-finished cup of coffee. On the screen, an email draft addressed to someone I didn't recognize began with, "Everything is in motion. Daniel must not find out yet." My blood ran cold. Ryan wasn't just a friend. He had been planning something I had no right to interfere with, yet couldn't ignore. I pocketed my phone, trying to steady my hands, when I heard the front door open behind me. Ryan. He froze when he saw me. "Daniel," he said, voice tight, guilty. I didn't waste words. "What is this, Ryan? Who are you working for? And why was Brooke with you at the motel?" Ryan's shoulders sagged. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I had seen countless times in college before exams, but never like this. "Daniel. I wasn't supposed to get involved. I swear, I wasn't supposed to. I was protecting her." "Protecting her?" I asked, disbelief slicing through me. "From what? You? Or someone else?" He shook his head. "No, it's bigger than us. Brooke. She's not who you think she is. She's been in danger for months. I was supposed to keep her safe, even if it meant you thought the worst of her." My stomach twisted. The words barely made sense. The betrayal had already cut deep, but now the edges seemed sharper, more complicated. If Brooke was truly in danger, then maybe the motel wasn't about infidelity at all. Maybe it was something far darker. I took a deep breath. "Then tell me. Tell me everything." Ryan hesitated, looking at me with a mixture of guilt and fear. "I can't. Not yet. If the wrong person knew you were asking questions, it could put both of you in more danger. But I will tell you this: everything you saw wasn't what it seemed." He left me with that cryptic warning, and as he disappeared down the hallway, I realized something chilling: I had been blind. I had assumed betrayal when it might have been protection. And now, I had no idea whom to trust. She hesitated, biting her lip. "I'm not. I wasn't always Brooke Miller. That's not my real name. My real name is Brooke Sanchez, and for months, maybe longer, I've been in hiding. I was under protection, from people who wanted to hurt me, and Ryan. He was involved in helping me stay safe. That night at the motel. It wasn't what you think. I wanted to believe her. I wanted the weight in my chest to lift, but her words created more questions than they answered. Then why did it look like betrayal? Why did it feel like you were hiding something from me? But even as confusion threatened to overwhelm me, one thought burned clearly in my mind: the real story, the truth behind Brooke and Room 214, was only beginning to unravel. That evening, Brooke returned to the apartment. She looked exhausted, her usual composed demeanor replaced by a tense urgency that made my chest tighten. For the first time in weeks, I truly saw the fear in her eyes, not just the hesitation I had noticed before, but a genuine terror that seemed to weigh on her every move. She didn't speak at first, just sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands clasped tightly. I waited, trying to remain calm, though my mind was racing. The questions I wanted to ask were countless. Why had she lied about her whereabouts? Why was Ryan at the motel? What danger was she involved in? But I didn't speak yet. I knew that pushing too hard now would only make her shut down completely. Finally, she exhaled, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel. There are things about my life I've never told anyone. Things I wanted to protect you from. Things I didn't know how to explain. I leaned forward. Then start somewhere. Please. Brooke's eyes filled with tears. I couldn't risk telling you everything. I didn't know if I could trust anyone completely. Not you, not Ryan, not even the authorities who were supposed to protect me. There were complications, and I feared that explaining it would put you in danger too. Her admission hung in the air like smoke, intangible yet suffocating. I could feel my emotions twisting between relief, confusion, and lingering hurt. The betrayal I had felt was real, yet now it seemed possible that my assumptions were wrong. She paused, glancing nervously at the door. There's more, Daniel. Ryan. He's not who he appears to be. And I can't tell you everything yet. But if you want to understand, you need to be ready for the truth. And even then, some truths aren't safe to know. I sat back, trying to absorb the fragments of her story. Each word she spoke was like a keyhole into a room I wasn't allowed to enter, a glimpse of something larger and more dangerous than anything I had imagined, and as I watched her, I realized the first betrayal, what I thought had destroyed us, might have only been the beginning. The real danger, and the real truth, were still waiting, hidden in shadows I was only beginning to see. The next few days passed in a tense blur. Brooke avoided leaving the apartment, claiming it was safer to stay indoors, while I wrestled with the fragments of her story. My mind refused to settle, questions kept ricocheting through my thoughts. Who was Brooke Sanchez? What had she done that required protection? And why hadn't she trusted me with the truth sooner? One evening, she finally sat me down in the living room. Her hands trembled as she opened a small, worn folder she had hidden beneath the couch cushions. I watched her carefully, afraid that even breathing too loudly might shatter the fragile calm she had created. This, she began, tapping the folder, contains proof of everything. What happened before I became who you knew as Brooke Miller. She hesitated. I was part of something dangerous. Something bigger than us. I can't explain all of it at once, but you need to understand that the motel, Ryan. It was all meant to protect me, and by extension, protect you too. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. The betrayal I had felt at the Lakeview Inn seemed almost distant compared to the weight of her words. Dangerous how? I asked cautiously, trying not to let fear overtake my voice. Brooke's eyes darted to the window, then back to me. There's a group. They're involved in organized crime and financial crimes that reach far beyond this city. I testified against them months ago. I entered a witness protection program. Ryan's role was complicated. He was assigned to monitor me, but his loyalties weren't entirely clear. I leaned back, struggling to process the revelation. Betrayal, fear, and confusion intertwined with my remaining love for her. All this time, the woman I loved had been living in the crosshairs of something I couldn't even imagine. And I had misjudged her, assumed the worst, and let my mind spiral into anger that now seemed misplaced. She opened the folder, sliding photographs, documents, and encrypted notes across the table. Each piece told a fragment of a story that was intricate and dangerous. But she stopped before I could ask more. That's all I can show you for now. The rest. You're not ready. Some truths are better revealed in steps, Daniel. If you try to grasp everything at once, it could destroy you, or both of us. Her words were heavy with meaning, but even as I tried to absorb them, I felt a prickling unease. Something didn't sit right. Ryan's presence at the motel, the cryptic messages, the secrets Brooke hadn't fully revealed. It was as if there was another layer, something hidden beneath the surface. And as she closed the folder and hugged it to her chest, I realized, the betrayal I had witnessed wasn't the beginning. It was only the first step into a labyrinth of deception, danger, and truths I wasn't sure I was prepared to face. The next morning, I woke with a restless mind. Brooke's revelations from the night before clung to me like fog, obscuring everything familiar in my life. Witness protection, organized crime, Ryan's complicated role, it was a world I had never imagined existing so close to me. And yet, despite the chaos, a part of me was determined to understand. I started by retracing every recent event in my head, looking for patterns I may have overlooked. The motel. Ryan's sudden appearance. Brooke's nervous glances at her phone. The cryptic messages. Each incident, minor on its own, now formed threads in a tangled web. It became clear that someone was orchestrating this, guiding events in a way that made me doubt everything and everyone around me. I pulled out the folder Brooke had shown me and spread the contents across the kitchen table. Photos of people I didn't know, documents filled with codes and numbers, notes in handwriting that wasn't hers, all pieces of a puzzle I was only beginning to see. I couldn't make sense of it all yet, but one pattern stood out: every event, every person, every decision seemed connected to a single point of interest: room 214 at the Lakeview Inn. My mind kept returning to that night. The way Ryan had reacted when I confronted him, the way Brooke had looked, scared, but not guilty. I realized the betrayal I had felt at the motel might have been carefully constructed. Everything about it seemed designed to provoke an emotional reaction, to mislead me while protecting something far more important. Determined to dig deeper, I revisited the texts and call logs on both Ryan and Brooke's phones, discreetly, without letting either of them know. I traced patterns of movement, the timing of their interactions, the names mentioned in passing. Slowly, a clearer picture began to emerge. Ryan had been monitoring something, or someone, closely, and Brooke had been in the center of it all, but the more I uncovered, the more I realized I didn't have the full story. Someone else was involved, someone who wanted to manipulate the situation to their advantage. My heart raced with a mix of fear and determination. I was getting closer, but every answer seemed to open two more questions. By nightfall, I had reached a decision. I couldn't sit back and wait for the truth to be revealed in fragments. I had to confront the mystery head-on, to follow every lead, to track every clue no matter where it led. The next step, I knew, would bring me closer to the truth, and to the next betrayal lurking just beneath the surface, and deep down, a cold thought gnawed at me: I was no longer just chasing answers. I was being drawn into a game I might not survive, and the rules were still hidden. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind was a storm, circling the fragments of Brooke's story and Ryan's half-truths. Witness protection, criminal networks, cryptic messages, everything felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into a darkness I couldn't fully comprehend. But there was one thing I was certain of: I needed the whole truth. The next morning, I confronted Brooke. "I need to know everything," I said, voice firm but controlled. "No more half-truths, no more omissions. I can handle it. I need to understand why room 214, Ryan, everything, why it all exists." Brooke's eyes filled with fear, but also a strange determination. "Daniel, you may regret hearing this," she whispered. "But you deserve the truth. My name. My real name. It's not Brooke Miller. It's Brooke Sanchez. And my life before you knew me. It never truly ended. I entered witness protection, yes, but my enemies never stopped looking. Ryan. He wasn't my lover. He was assigned to monitor me, to keep me safe, but even he has secrets. He wasn't always loyal to me. And now, someone is using him, or pretending to." Her words hit me like a punch. The betrayal I had felt at the motel, the heartbreak, the anger, it all shifted. It wasn't romantic betrayal. It was far more dangerous. Someone had orchestrated the motel scene, using my assumptions against me. Ryan, Brooke, even I, we were all pieces on a board I didn't fully see. I sank into the chair, trying to process it all. Then the motel. Everything. It was staged. I asked, my voice trembling. Brooke nodded. Partially. I didn't want you involved, Daniel. I wanted to protect you. But the truth is bigger than you know. There's a network, people who want information I possess, and they'll use anyone, even my closest allies, to get it. Ryan was compromised. That night. He made a choice I didn't agree with. But I couldn't intervene openly, not without risking both of us. The room felt suddenly smaller. Suffocating. I realized that the real danger wasn't just about trust or betrayal. It was about survival. And the people who threatened Brooke's life were still out there, watching, planning. I swallowed hard. Then we need to fight back, I said, my resolve hardening. We need to expose the truth before it's too late. Brooke hesitated, then handed me another folder, heavier than the first. This, she said, voice low, contains everything you need to know. But beware. The closer you get, the more danger you invite. And some truths are worse than lies. I took the folder, feeling the weight not just in my hands, but in my chest. I had crossed a line. I was no longer just a man seeking answers about betrayal. I was a man about to uncover secrets that could destroy everything, and everyone, I thought I knew. The morning sunlight did nothing to ease the heaviness in my chest. Ryan's face and Brooke's revelations played on a relentless loop in my mind. I had trusted him for years, considered him my closest friend, yet now I knew he had secrets, and not the kind you forgive. The motel, the messages, his hesitation when I confronted him, it wasn't just incompetence or miscommunication. He had actively misled me. I found Ryan at his apartment again. This time determined to get answers. His door was slightly ajar, and I pushed it open cautiously. He was waiting, as if he had anticipated my arrival. Daniel, he said, voice tight. I didn't want you to find out like this. I need the truth, Ryan, I said, stepping inside. No more hiding. No more half-truths. Who are you working for? And why were you really at the motel? He ran his hands through his hair, pacing the small room. I was protecting Brooke, he admitted. But there are others involved. Powerful people. People who've been manipulating me, using me to control her. That night at the motel, I was supposed to make sure she stayed put. I was told to mislead you if necessary. And I did. The words hit me harder than I expected. Ryan wasn't acting out of loyalty. He had been a pawn, a conduit in a game I didn't fully understand. The betrayal I had felt at the motel suddenly expanded, engulfing not just my emotions but my sense of reality. I felt a surge of anger. You used me, I said, voice low and controlled, though every nerve in my body was on fire. You let me see what I thought was betrayal. You let me suffer. On purpose. Ryan flinched. It wasn't on purpose, he said quickly. It was the only way to keep you both alive. I swear, Daniel. I didn't choose the side I'm on, but I couldn't defy orders. You have to understand that. I shook my head, struggling to process the layers of deception. Then whose orders were you following? I demanded. Ryan's eyes flickered, a shadow of fear crossing his face. I can't say. Not yet. If I tell you, they'll come for us faster than you can imagine. But know this, Brooke isn't safe. And neither are you. I took a deep breath, absorbing the gravity of his confession. The betrayal was no longer personal. It was strategic. Calculated. And it meant that the people orchestrating this game were watching every move, controlling every narrative, and keeping Brooke at the center of a storm I couldn't yet see. Ryan stepped back, hands raised. I wanted to protect you. I wanted to warn you. But the moment you know too much, it changes everything. I left his apartment without another word, heart pounding, mind racing. For the first time, I realized that the betrayal I had felt at the motel, the heartbreak, the anger, the doubt, was just the tip of the iceberg. The real game had only begun, and I was now trapped in it, whether I wanted to be or not. By evening, I knew waiting around was no longer an option. Brooke and I couldn't stay in Charlotte, not with Ryan compromised, not with whoever was orchestrating this threat still out there. The folder she had given me, heavy with secrets and evidence, felt like a lead weight in my hands, but it was also our key to understanding everything. We had to move, and we had to move fast. Brooke packed lightly, her movements precise, almost mechanical, as if she had rehearsed this countless times. I couldn't help but notice the tension in her jaw, the way her hands shook slightly as she zipped her bag. "We don't have much time," she said quietly. "They're watching. Every step we take is being monitored." I felt a chill run down my spine. The betrayal I had thought was personal now took on a new dimension. It was a hunt, and we were the prey. Every glance over my shoulder, every passing car, could conceal someone following us, someone who wanted to make sure we never reached the truth. We left the apartment quietly, the night swallowing us in shadows as we drove away. The streets of Charlotte, familiar just days ago, now felt like a maze designed to trap us. I tried to focus on the road, but my mind kept replaying Ryan's words, "If you know too much, it changes everything." As we drove, Brooke finally spoke. "The people after me. They're patient, smart, and dangerous. They've been manipulating events for months. That motel. It was a test. They wanted to see how you'd react. And now that you know, you're both targets." I glanced at her, the glow of streetlights casting shadows across her face. The woman I loved, the woman I had trusted, was now a stranger in many ways. And yet, I couldn't turn away. My heart, my instincts, demanded that I stay with her, no matter the danger. We made our first stop at a safe house she had used before entering witness protection, an inconspicuous townhouse tucked in a quiet suburb. Inside, the atmosphere was tense but organized. Brooke quickly checked the perimeter, then handed me another document from the folder. "This shows who's involved," she said. "Names, locations, connections. But be careful, some of them are closer than you think." I skimmed the pages, feeling a mix of fear and determination. The betrayal, the deception, the danger, it all had a method. And if we were going to survive, we had to stay one step ahead. As I looked out the window into the darkened street, a single thought consumed me: we had escaped Charlotte, but the Real chase had only just begun. And somewhere, in the shadows, someone was already waiting for our next move. The safe house was quiet, but the silence felt heavy, almost oppressive. Brooke paced the living room while I tried to absorb the documents she had given me. Names, connections, locations, a web of people who had been manipulating events for months. Each page revealed new layers of danger, new reasons why Ryan's betrayal had been just the surface of a much larger plan. "I can't believe how organized this is," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. "It's not just a random threat. Someone has been controlling everything, guiding every move, making sure we react the way they want." Brooke nodded. "Exactly. And they're patient. They wait, watch, and manipulate." That motel scene. It was a test, a way to measure your reaction. Whoever is behind this wanted to see if you'd trust me, if you'd get angry, if you'd act impulsively. And now, we're deeper in than ever. The thought sent a chill down my spine. Every step we had taken, every decision we had made, had been influenced by an unseen hand. And now, that hand was tightening its grip. I studied the documents more closely, tracing connections between people I didn't recognize, trying to find a pattern. Then I saw it, a name repeated several times, always linked to Brooke and Ryan: Michael Harper. "Brooke. Do you know this name?" I asked. Her eyes widened, and she shook her head. "I've heard of him," she admitted. "He's dangerous. Connected to everything that's been happening. If he knows we're looking into him, he'll come after us directly." My stomach twisted. The betrayal at the motel, Ryan's compromised loyalty, the cryptic messages, they were all connected to this one man. And now, the hunt was personal. As night fell, we decided to move again, knowing that staying in one place too long was a risk. Brooke drove this time, her hands tight on the wheel, eyes scanning every shadow, every passing car. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching, tracking us, predicting our every move. Then, in the rearview mirror, I saw it, a black SUV trailing us. My pulse quickened. Brooke noticed it too and cursed under her breath. "They found us," she said. "Michael's people. They've been waiting for the right moment to strike." We had only just begun to uncover the truth, yet the danger had already found us. The hunter was revealed, and now the chase was on. There was no turning back. As we sped down the empty highway, headlights flashing behind us, I realized something chilling. The betrayal I had feared at the motel was nothing compared to the forces now aligned against us. And if we weren't careful, the next move could be our last. The night was alive with tension. The hum of the tires on asphalt and the roar of the black SUV behind us echoing like a warning. Every mile we put between us and Charlotte felt temporary, a fragile illusion of safety. Brooke gripped the wheel tightly, her jaw set, eyes flicking between the road and the rearview mirror. I could feel her fear radiating, but also a quiet determination, the same determination that had kept her alive all these months. "We need to lose them," I said, my voice low, urgent. "There has to be a way." Brooke nodded without taking her eyes off the road. "There's a series of back roads and service lanes. If we split off, we might be able to shake them for a while, but only temporarily. Harper's people are trained. They anticipate almost everything." I swallowed hard, glancing at the folder again. Michael Harper. The name kept repeating in my mind like a drumbeat. Who was he really? What did he want with Brooke? And why manipulate me, Ryan, and even Brooke herself to this extent? I opened the folder, scanning through a series of photographs, financial records, and encrypted messages. One thread jumped out. Harper wasn't just interested in silencing Brooke, he was methodical, orchestrating every betrayal, every distraction, to manipulate her into leading him somewhere. He wanted leverage, control, and perhaps even revenge for a past he considered wronged. Brooke glanced at me, noticing my focus. "You found him," she said quietly. "Yes." Harper's methodical. He doesn't strike blindly. He plans every step, and the chaos. That's part of it. The motel, Ryan, even the cryptic messages, it was all meant to test me, and you. My stomach tightened. Test us? For what? Her eyes flickered to the rearview mirror again. To see if we can survive. To see if I can survive. And to see if anyone is clever enough to uncover the real trail behind him. He doesn't just want to silence me, he wants to control the narrative. Every move we make is a data point for him. The realization made my pulse spike. The betrayal at the motel, Ryan's misleading actions, the messages, it wasn't just about fear or punishment. It was about control. Harper was manipulating our emotions, our choices, even our perceptions of each other. And if we weren't careful, he could destroy everything, using our trust against us. The black SUV continued tailing us, relentless. Brooke made a sharp turn onto a narrow, forested road, tires crunching on gravel. The headlights behind us bounced off the trees. I realized the danger was no longer theoretical. Harper was no longer a shadow in documents or photographs. He was real, and he was close. I took a deep breath. The chase wasn't just survival anymore. It was a war of wits, deception, and endurance, and we were just beginning to understand the rules. By dawn, the forested roads had taken on a surreal, almost dreamlike quality. Mist hovered over the asphalt, and the early sunlight barely penetrated the dense canopy above. But there was no time to admire the scenery. Harper's SUV had not relented, its shadow constantly looming behind us. Every turn, every lane, was a calculated risk. Survival meant thinking faster, moving smarter, and trusting instincts above all else. "We need to stop running blindly," I said, my voice firm. "We need leverage, something Harper wants more than us simply disappearing." Brooke nodded slowly. "I have an idea, but it's risky," she admitted. "There's a location tied to Harper's operations. Financial records, hidden servers. If we can get access, we might gain the upper hand. But it's guarded heavily. One wrong move and they'll know exactly where we are." I swallowed, the weight of responsibility pressing down on me. "We have no choice. Either we take control or we stay at his mercy." "I'll follow your lead." She gave a grim smile, one that carried both determination and fear. "Good. We leave the forest and head to an abandoned warehouse he uses as a safe house. We'll need to be careful, his men aren't just physically capable, they're trained in tracking and surveillance. Harper doesn't leave things to chance." The drive was tense. Every rustle of the trees, every sudden movement on the roadside made my heart race. I tried to keep calm, focusing on Brooke's instructions and the route she had memorized. She had planned this before, she said, but it was never meant to be executed with me in tow. When we arrived, the warehouse loomed like a silent fortress, rusted metal and chain-link fencing surrounding it. Brooke gestured for me to stay low while she scouted the perimeter. "We have a narrow window," she whispered. "We slip in, get the files, and leave before anyone notices. Timing is everything." I nodded, trying to steady my nerves. Each step we took felt deliberate, like a chess move on a board we didn't fully understand. The stakes were enormous. If we failed, Harper would know, and he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate anyone in his way, including us. As we approached the entrance, a shadow moved across a distant window. My pulse spiked. Brooke froze, eyes narrowing. "They're here," she whispered. "Harper's men are already inside. But we can still do this. Stick to the plan." I took a deep breath, gripping the folder in my bag like a shield. The next few minutes would determine whether we gained leverage or walked straight into Harper's trap. The gamble had begun. The warehouse loomed like a shadow of menace in the morning fog, its rusted metal walls hiding secrets we were desperate to uncover. Brooke led the way, moving with precision, whispering instructions as we skirted around broken crates and shattered windows. Every step was deliberate, every breath measured. Harper's men were trained, but so was Brooke. "We have to move fast," she whispered. "The server room is at the back, guarded by cameras. We'll need to avoid detection. I'll go first, you follow exactly as I do." I nodded, my hands gripping the folder tightly. The tension in the air was suffocating. One wrong move, and Harper's operatives would know we were here. The betrayal we had felt, the motel, Ryan, the lies, all paled in comparison to the danger now pressing in on us. We slipped inside through a side entrance Brooke had scouted, crouching low to avoid creaking floorboards. The smell of dust and oil hung heavy, and the faint hum of machinery suggested the presence of more than just files. I followed Brooke's lead, my heart thumping with a mix of fear and determination. As we approached the server room, the faint glow of monitors illuminated shadows of movement. Brooke held up a finger, signaling me to stay still. "Two guards inside," she whispered. "We need to distract them. I'll create the diversion, you slip past and access the servers." Before I could protest, she moved swiftly, knocking over a stack of crates. The guard's attention snapped toward the noise. I pressed against the wall, adrenaline surging, and quietly slipped into the room, feeling like a ghost in a world where every heartbeat could give us away. Inside, rows of servers blinked with data I barely understood, but Brooke had taught me what to look for: names, locations, connections. I worked quickly, copying files to a secure drive while Brooke's diversion kept the guards occupied. Every second felt like an eternity. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the doorway. "Looking for something?" I froze. Brooke tensed beside me. One of Harper's men stood there, arms crossed, a smirk curling on his face. My stomach dropped. The infiltration had been detected. The hunter was no longer invisible. Before I could react, Brooke stepped forward, her eyes blazing with determination. "You don't understand who you're dealing with," she said calmly. Though I could feel the tension radiating from her, the man's smirk widened. "Oh, I think I understand perfectly. You're in my territory now. And Harper. He'll be very pleased to know you've arrived." I realized in that moment that we had stepped deeper into Harper's world than ever before. The betrayal, the danger, the manipulation, it wasn't just a test anymore. It was a trap. The man's smirk sent a chill down my spine, and for a moment, I froze. Brooke's hand on my arm snapped me out of it. "We move now," she whispered, urgency in her eyes. Before the man could react further, Brooke lunged toward a control panel by the door, pressing a sequence of buttons she had memorized. Alarms blared and red lights flashed, sending the guards into momentary chaos. The diversion gave us just enough time to slip past them, sprinting down a narrow corridor that smelled of oil and dust. "Go. Faster," Brooke hissed, glancing back as the guards regrouped. The echo of their footsteps behind us was relentless, a pounding reminder that failure was not an option. Every muscle in my body burned as we raced toward the back exit she had scouted earlier. We burst into the foggy morning light, the warehouse looming behind us like a beast guarding its prey. I didn't look back. We ran toward a line of trees Brooke knew would lead us to a hidden service road. My lungs burned, but adrenaline fueled every step. The files, the folder, everything we had fought for was safe, for now. Once we reached the car, Brooke jumped in, and I barely managed to get in before the engine roared to life. We sped down the service road, the warehouse disappearing behind us. But the relief was short-lived. Brooke glanced at me, her face pale. "Daniel. There's something you need to know," she said, her voice tight. I looked at her, breathless. "What is it?" She opened the folder she had clutched the entire time and pulled out a photograph. My heart sank. It was Harper, older, meticulous, and cold, standing next to someone I recognized instantly. My jaw went rigid. "That's my father," Brooke whispered. My mind froze. I knew immediately why Harper had been so methodical, why he had orchestrated betrayal, manipulation, and fear. Brooke's life, Ryan's compromised loyalty, the chaos of the motel, and the constant surveillance, it was all part of a personal vendetta. Harper wasn't just after her for information, he was after her for family, for revenge, for control. I stared at Brooke, feeling the weight of the revelation settle. The stakes had shifted entirely. This wasn't just survival anymore, it was personal. Every decision from this point forward would define who lived, who died, and whose secrets would prevail. Brooke looked at me, eyes fierce but scared. "We've survived the first test, Daniel. But the real game. The real game is about to begin." I gripped the steering wheel, my mind racing. One thing was clear, Harper's reach, his shadow, and his obsession were far greater than we had imagined. And now, we had no choice but to face him head-on. The drive back toward the city was tense, every passing mile filled with anticipation and fear. Harper's shadow loomed larger with every thought, his influence reaching into every corner of our lives. Brooke's revelation about her father had shifted everything. The betrayal, the danger, the lies, they were no longer abstract concepts. They were personal, visceral, and inescapable. "We need a plan," I said, voice steady despite the storm inside me. "We can't run forever. Harper wants control, but he won't stop. The only way out is to confront him, expose him, and make sure he can't manipulate anyone else ever again." Brooke nodded, determination hardening her features. "We have one chance. There's a location, a warehouse he owns in Atlanta. It's heavily guarded, but it's the center of everything, his files, his operations, the proof of everything he's done. We take that, and we strip him of control." The drive to Atlanta was tense, every shadow a potential threat, every passing car a possible spy. Harper's network had shown us time and again that he anticipated every move. But now, armed with knowledge, files, and each other, we felt a spark of hope, fragile but unyielding. When we arrived at the warehouse, Brooke and I moved cautiously. The night air was thick with tension, every sound amplified by fear and adrenaline. Using the knowledge from the stolen documents, we navigated past security cameras, disabled alarms, and avoided Harper's men with calculated precision. Every step was a gamble, every breath a test of nerve. Finally, we reached the inner office. Harper stood there, calm, almost smug, as if he had been expecting us all along. His eyes locked onto Brooke. "I knew you'd come," he said, voice low, deliberate. "I always knew you'd lead someone here. But Daniel, you're braver than I thought." I stepped forward. "This ends tonight, Harper. No more manipulation, no more betrayal. Your control ends here." Brooke handed me the folder with evidence, the proof of his crimes, his manipulations, and his betrayals. Harper's expression darkened, realizing the trap he had walked into. "You think this proves anything?" he hissed. But his confidence faltered as law enforcement sirens echoed in the distance. Brooke had sent an anonymous tip ahead of time, using the information in the folder. Harper's empire, built on fear and deceit, was collapsing. As the police stormed in, Harper realized the depth of his defeat. Brooke and I stood side by side, exhausted but alive. The betrayal, the danger, the chaos, it had all led to this moment. The shadows that had haunted us were dissipating, replaced by the clarity of truth. Brooke looked at me, a mixture of relief and sorrow in her eyes. "We survived," she whispered. I nodded, gripping her hand. "Yes. And from now on, no more secrets. Only truth." For the first time in months, I believed it. The games, the betrayals, and the shadows of Harper's control were over. But the lessons lingered: trust, courage, and vigilance were priceless. And together, we had survived. As the screen fades from Brooke and Daniel standing victorious, the narrator's voice lingers: "Harper is gone. For now." But the shadows of betrayal, secrets, and danger never fully disappear. Somewhere, in the corners of the city, a new player may be watching, waiting. And the next move could change everything. Will Brooke and Daniel truly be safe? Or is this just the beginning of a larger game? Then, with a dramatic pause, the video cuts to black, and the text appears: "The story isn't over." Subscribe and turn on notifications. The next chapter is coming, and you won't want to miss what happens when the shadows return.